Hey, council, please come to order. Thank you very much. On behalf of council and staff, we welcome everyone here this evening to our special council meeting, August the 13th. We have a few things on this agenda and we look forward to the discussion and my hope we make a decision here tonight. That's kind of my goal, council. No surprise. But anyway, at this time, as at every meeting, I'll ask the clerk administrator to do roll call, please.
Okay, Mayor Klopp,
Present?
Deputy Mayor Becker,
Present.
Councillor Groot,
Present.
Councillor Harris,
Present.
Councillor Hessel,
Present.
Councillor Lamport,
Present.
Councillor Sangster,
Present.
Councillor Walden,
Present.
and Councillor Whetstone.
Present.
Okay, thank you, council. We have a full council. That's great. Thank you. This time is there disclosure of pecuniary interest for this meeting. Okay, and if something comes up, councilors, again, just get a hold of our clerk. Three consent agenda. We have 3.1 and 3.2. You've got that information. Can I have a motion to receive for information? Councillor Walden, seconded by Councillor Lamport. We do both 3.1 and 3.2. Is that okay? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We're at 4 presentation. I will ask the clerk to go over the process and how we'll work tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you. This evening, Bedrock Energy Corp and Capstone Infrastructure Corporation are in attendance. They have come with a presentation responding to the themes and concerns of the questions that they have been receiving from the public, from Monday's delegation, and members of council. And they are prepared with that presentation to start off the meeting tonight. I believe they will be pausing between each section to allow for questions from council. As indicated in their delegation on Monday evening, the request being made of council is for a municipal support resolution. This resolution is to meet the mandatory requirements of section 4.2A of the LLTC RFP, where the project site is proposed to be located in whole or in part on municipal lands. And the sample of that prescribed form was attached to the council report that was on the agenda. Mayor Klopp,
Okay, go ahead. All right, we're now at 4.1. Could Tanya, I guess, whenever you're ready, and introduce your colleagues, and keep in mind that we not only have in the gallery here, but we have a number of residents who've taken the time and they're in the auditorium, and so always speak to the mic, and I hope I will do the same. Okay, go ahead.
Check here. Could everyone hear me clearly? Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and community members of Blue Water. My name is Steven San Giuliano. I'm the CEO of Bedrock Energy. My colleagues here with me are Evan Tumillo to my left, Tanya Mackey, Zane Javed, and Clark Trivers from our partners at Capstone Infrastructure. We received a lot of great feedback, interest, and comments from the community and from council. We really appreciate the opportunity today to address some of that, provide further insight. So, as Chandra mentioned, format we try to establish here is that we've organized a lot of the questions and the themes. We'd like to present our responses, again, with the intent to clarify anything we can. And we are open and happy for council members to interject and ask any questions as we go through. So the project in question, Bedrock's been working towards this for almost a decade. It's a 382 megawatt compressed air energy storage facility. It operates for a minimum duration of 8 hours. It utilizes the Bayfield and Stanley porous rock reservoirs. These are nearly depleted former gas production facilities. Essentially how the system works is it draws electricity from the grid when demand is low. With compressors, it compresses that in these underground caverns. These caverns are 400 million years old and there's no recorded leak through all of gas production since 1954 to date. And then when electricity is needed on the grid, it is heated up through the thermal storage. It's a completely closed cycle green system. Out through the expanders, putting electrons back on the grid. The complete system layout is on 130 acres of land. And this project itself, we are targeting the ISO's long lead time RFP. It is a special purpose RFP for these types of assets, these long duration energy storage procurements, and the bid submission date therefore is November 27th of this year. We're connecting to the 500 kV system. We have organized the layout for this facility so that there are no wires. So we've located the top side to the substation. Why does Ontario need power? It's a mix of push and pull factors. So with nuclear facilities coming offline and refurbishments happening to others, it's up to about 5,000 megawatts coming off the grid in the next 10 years. And then at the same time, we have population growth, economic growth, electrification. These combine to say, okay, well, we need to put power on the grid. As a part of that, the ISOs acknowledged these procurements. These procurements have gone on since for the last 4 years, but till date, they focused on shorter duration energy storage and also intermittent renewable generation. It also recognizes the need for power and for backup and grid reliability, and long duration energy storage is to address that. Municipal support resolution. This was enacted in January of 2023 with the purpose of municipalities and the community having a say over projects, proponents being transparent, and then an ultimate decision whether or not projects proceed. We are seeking an MSR tonight for the purpose of this project to intended to be bid into the LLT RFP in November. I do want to be clear, the MSR itself does not mean if you were to approve the project that we get to start building tomorrow. Rather, it means that we have an opportunity to continue to design, to continue to speak with the community and council, to be able to package a bid into a competitive RFP. And if we are successful in that RFP, we then are allowed the opportunity to meet all provincial regulatory approvals and all municipal permits, many of which are within the purview and control of the municipality of Blue Water, as well as the County of Huron, through site plan control provisions. What happens if the project does not receive an MSR? The ISO has staged these RFPs for as I mentioned, typically annually. But for last year, the ISO has said that there will be one RFP. So this is not a reoccurring process as of the information that's public to date. If an MSR is granted, we would not have the opportunity, as I mentioned, to further speak with council to craft this project, get more involved in the community continuously, and develop the project and ultimately pursue the permits required.
Your worship, council, staff, community members, thank you again for inviting me here. Again, I'm Clark Trivers. I'm here from Capstone. And the first question here I'm here to address is the company that will be financing the project. As background, Capstone has been operating for over 2 decades, and we have a proven track record of financing infrastructure projects at this scale. And that's one of the main reasons that the team at Bedrock approached Capstone as a partner to finance, construct, and operate the project over the long term. Capstone has over 30 projects in operation across Canada, over 1,000 megawatts of similar projects contracted. So just a proven track record of the ability to deliver on projects just like this one. In the unfortunate and unlikely event that Capstone suffers financial hardships, does undergo bankruptcy, the impacts to the project are largely siloed under a special purpose vehicle company that operates the project. Capstone owns it. The project is largely isolated, and there's a vested interest in the parties that are financing the project to retain the value in the project and make sure that any change of hands goes to a reputable, well-founded company that can continue construction operations over the long term of the contract. Typically, the financial partners that Capstone has formed relationships with over the years are just your typical financial institutions like banks, long-term investment funds, other pension funds. So just your typical basically debt providers. And the typical structure of financing projects like this is about 80% debt, 20% private equity. So just to highlight, there's no public funds projected being involved in the project. Capstone is a Canadian company, headquarters in Toronto, listed on the TSX, backed by a long-term infrastructure investor. So that's the background of financing the project from Capstone's perspective. On the next slide, sorry.
Sorry, we'll just pause before we get to the next section if there's questions.
Any questions at this time? Councillor Groot?
I have a quick one here for Clark. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So Clark, you said you have 1,000 megawatt of similar projects.
That's right.
How similar?
Large scale, renewable and non-renewable projects. The one non-renewable project is the Cardinal Gas Plant, located in the Kingston area, a few hundred megawatts, just your typical gas peaker plant. And the remaining is there's one biomass facility, wind and solar, and targeting battery storage projects. So energy projects. We also have hydroelectric assets. So similar scale energy projects.
So similar scale, but not similar like to compressed air today.
Correct. Currently, yeah, Capstone does not operate any compressed air facilities at this time.
Okay, thanks.
I might add just to that answer, there's a senior member of Capstone who's a part of building the one compressed air energy storage facility. It's operating Goderich, not far from here.
Thank you. Counselor, you have a question?
Just with regards to Capstone's financing, you mentioned different hydro projects or different infrastructure projects. Any of them with Hydro One?
Hydro One infrastructure. We do work closely with Hydro One to facilitate the interconnection of projects to the transmission system. As far as I'm aware, Capstone has not been contracted directly by Hydro One to deliver any projects. We just work closely with them on the commissioning and interconnection of these projects.
Okay, go ahead, Tanya.
All right, on this slide, this is an overview of the planned community benefits agreement. Basically, for a project like this, the assessed property tax value, the process is not entirely determined at this point. We have estimates as to what that would be. And basically, just in order for the municipality to host this project, the combined assessed property tax revenue to the municipality combined with the balance of community benefits agreement would be $1.5 million on an annual basis, adjusted for inflation for the duration of the 40-year contract. That's the figure that's been proposed in project plans so far. And on an illustrative basis, year over year, a total of just over $90 million, a one-way flow of funds from the project to the municipality as part of that combined community benefits agreement and revenue to the municipality from property taxes.
Councillor Lamport?
So I just need you to clarify that. You
Sure.
go 1.5 million for 40 years. It's the indexing that you're doing to get to the 90 million. How'd you jump to, that's 60 million. So how do you get to 90 million?
Correct. Yep. Year over year,
It-
pegged to
index.
inflation. Yeah. Indexed.
I got you.
Yeah. To increase on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hessel?
I guess I have a question with regards to you. When you talked about like the bankruptcy or it being isolated out, so that community benefit then, does that go away if you go bankrupt?
No, it doesn't go away. The transfer of funds, yeah, it's all housed within, yeah, the project entity. It's not, I mean, I can double check.
The agreements are made between we call it a special purpose vehicle, SPV is the term. All projects, a lot of projects, even outside the energy industry for liability funding reasons, tax reasons are in this SPV. So contracts ultimately between the ISO and the project are with this SPV, and those contracts between the municipality are with the SPV.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up then, okay, so if the project maintains itself, Capstone, let's say goes bankrupt, there's a finance debt. And you're still saying that we would get our benefit, even though there's a finance debt that went bankrupt? I'm trying to figure out
Hmm.
where the numbers, like, I feel like, I just know if I go bankrupt, it's the bank comes after me first, and anyone that personally secondary finances me. So I'm just saying, like, normally the one that gets cut out is the one that you're giving free money to.
The revenue to the project is from the ISO to the project on an annual basis over 40 years. So the proposed project is not like speculation on energy prices. It's a fixed term contract that month by month, year by year, revenues are coming into the project from basically the province. So that's the source of funding. So that is isolated from Capstone's other operations. Capstone, as an owner of the project, operates independently of revenues coming from the province to the project. And the basis of the community support resolution funding agreement, the assessed property tax, yeah, those payments for the agreement go from the project to the municipality, not from Capstone as the owning entity to the municipality.
Okay. One of the things that intrigued me, I guess, and I think a lot of council, and we asked Maggie McBride, our treasurer, to look into, because some of the other projects over the years wasn't very much for the property tax, like most of us in this room can relate to, whether you're business or farm or whatever, personal properties. So you've got increment property tax at 150,000. Maggie, can you verify any of that part of the tax? Do you have any idea what you think they might be paying? Because maybe they're going to pay more. What have you found?
Yeah, so through your worship to council, it's indicated in the staff report that's further on to the agenda as well. But myself and the clerk administrator did have a meeting with MPAC earlier this week to talk about this. And at this point, neither staff nor MPAC feel comfortable giving an approximate value of what a property like this may be assessed by MPAC. So some of the things that were discussed, typically in order for an estimate to be done, we would need blueprint, like engineer drawings of the whole facility. And I do understand that that information isn't available right now. So without that information, we're not able to give an estimate of what a property value would be. I think it's important to note too, MPAC had said even to their even how they would evaluate the property. They're unsure at this point, and they're looking into whether it would be a commercial property or an industrial property from their side of things, and that's regardless of how the property is zoned from our side. So they have a different set of tools that they use when assessing the value of a property. So what we know right now, and it's even on a residential house, MPAC's assessed value of a property is a standardized tax assessment based on a fixed evaluation date. So right now the province is still using 2016 as that evaluation date. And we can't correlate what MPAC's assessed value is to, say, a market value or even a construction value. So those are all kind of factors we have to take into account. So at this point, staff can't validate whether there would be $150,000 of property taxes or not. And there's not an estimate that we could provide at this point based off the information that's available.
Thank you. So And when you gave us reports and thank you for reminding me, that was 3 years ago you were here. And I didn't pull out those numbers, but you had numbers and I get that. So, but basically what you're saying to council and to the public, because there's people have said to me, boy, you hate to throw away, tax dollars, but you're basically guaranteeing that it'll be 1.5 and then it'd go up to 3.2. You built that into your cost structure. And but the taxes might be 650,000. And then you're just gonna move the money around, basically, right? That's what it means, because you're showing taxes and community benefit. But it, because most of us in the room now, we all try very hard to keep taxes down, but sometimes they go up. And so you have 150 there, say for argument's sake, that's what the assessment is. In 40 years, that might be, a little bit more. So I want to be clear, this is the max that you're that you budgeted for your operation. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just want to be clear with people.
It's okay. The 1.5 million figure is just the figure that we've planned for at this point. It's not a ceiling, and Capstone is certainly open to discussion with council, with municipality, as to what that figure should be. The thinking is that any uncertainty with the figure behind taxes, we want to make sure that it's the project that's taking on that uncertainty and not the municipality. Regardless if taxes come in lower or higher, we're committing to basically a true up to that $1.5 million figure. If you believe that that $1.5 million figure should be something different, something more, we're certainly open to that discussion. You can present the figure to us, tell us why you think it's a reasonable figure, and ultimately that just gets put into the project's financial model.
Okay, I appreciate that, but you're confirming, all I want to know is confirm it. This is the number, but it would fluctuate between the two, and thank you.
Okay.
And the other comments are wonderful too.
Sure.
We will move forward here.
Just to add to that, if I might, I had to do a quick bit of math on the phone. So thinking behind this, I'm not the tax guy here, but it was part of these discussions. It was hard to ascertain at this point, and as I believe Megan's found out, the MPAC exact rate. The numbers are old. So what we did in building this, it's not so much let us know, right? It is the fact that, which we would be open to those discussions, but we want to start with that number because when you substitute what we put for the, say, 150,000 for the taxes, you get $1 that's divided by megawatt. In this case, it's around $3,500 a megawatt. So typically on CBAs, community benefit agreements, the average range is $1,000 to $2,000 a megawatt. So Capstone wanted to come in with a higher figure off the gate and say, well, look, we still have to work towards this assessment. The true up is here for 1.5 million, taking account this math that we're providing. Capstone's providing a CBA that is well above average. And that in any instance, when we do work with you to figure out the tax revenue, that buffer is there.
Fair enough. I think I understand it. I appreciate that. Okay, Councillor Lambert, you're okay? Any more? Go ahead.
And I hate to backtrack a little bit, but you mentioned the ISO is guaranteed by the province because you write in the agreement, right? Because it's provincially funded. I thought you said that. Am I incorrect?
That's correct. The ISO. Yep.
So it's provincially funded,
Mhm.
and that's the guarantee. Right. So if the agreement says we're getting $500,000, it's kind of guaranteed by the province if something goes wrong. That's right.
That's correct.
That's
the contract.
okay,
That's
so-
the state contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the contract's in place with the province to
Yep.
buy the hydro or create the hydro, whatever you want to do.
Right.
It's guaranteed by the province. If something goes wrong, the province is the one that guarantees it. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. So but the funding comes through the province. Right.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, contract payments from the ISO for the project is what you're saying.
Yeah,
So-
so I kind of was reiterating back to the original question when we talked about if there's any financial difficulty down the road. I heard you say that the province agreement is guaranteed.
Correct. There are
Correct.
contractual obligations,
Yeah.
so long as the obligations of the contract remain in place. That's correct.
Yeah, so
The
the province
contract is
would,
with
the province is guaranteeing the contract.
That's right.
Right. Okay.
Okay, any questions on this financial stuff? We'll move on. And of course, councilors come back to anything. Okay. Oh, Councillor Groot, sorry, apologize.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one further question to Councillor Hessel's line of questioning then. So is that not going to be basis what type of production this system's doing? What if in 10 years it stops production? Like, I'm sure the province is expecting something. Production.
Sorry, can you
What if
reword
in
the
10
question?
years it stops production? Is the province going to continue to pay?
No,
They're
yeah,
doing-
those are obligations that have to be met, right? So at a very high level, winning these contracts, right, an award, it's a very competitive bid, right? So you can't just come in with a large number. There's a bunch of other folks that are looking to get these contracts. Energy developers, IPPs like Capstone, their whole business model is based on successfully having a contract, executing on operating it for decades. So with the competition in their place, you come up with a price, say a bid price, depending on the type of contract. There are many different ones. If you're within the range and you were competitively bid on that, as long as you fulfill your obligations, for example, in a capacity style contract to be on standby at certain times or certain durations to provide that energy, then yes, you get the payment. It's a power purchase agreement.
Okay, Councillor Sangster.
Thank you. Further down Council Hessel's questioning, going back with the province and it falling back on the province. So that means the Ontario taxpayers are paying for it as a whole. I need that clarified.
Hi. So as a contract is issued, it's the ratepayers that are paying for this. And that's effectively, we're agreeing to supply X amount of energy or purchase X amount of energy, whichever is happening, given that this is energy storage, and it's over a 40-year term. So it isn't something that's strictly saddled with the taxpayer, it's a ratepayer. If you're consuming electricity, you're the ratepayer. And that's effectively the argument here, that you are agreeing to purchase that, we are agreeing to sell it, and that's how that functions. So it's not strictly a framing of whether the province is funding this. It's not like a subsidized program. This is quite clearly the independent electricity service operator is gauging all of these different proponents and saying, okay, we understand that we have a need for a particular project, and we are willing to pay X amount for that energy at this particular location, wherever it is in the province. Thank you.
Okay,
I'd also add it's a competitive procurement that ultimately it is the Ontario ratepayer paying for these contracts. And this is one project of many in a competitive bid to try to drive down costs to ultimately win a contract.
Councillor.
So my guess, and I want to be sure about this because now you've talked about purchasing, so you kind of opened the door for me a little bit. So you mentioned that my guess would be is you're going to be buying from Hydro One, because that's our service provider. Who are you buying from? May I ask? The hydro for at night when you're compressing this air.
Oh yes, off the grid.
Yeah.
We're purchasing power off the grid.
Yeah, from Hydro One. Probably,
Hydro,
'cause-
the ISO, Hydro One, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like generators, like cell, Hydro
Yeah.
One transmits it, but yeah, there's like an accumulation of different entities that are ultimately leading to that price that we're purchasing.
All right. Well, we're in our area. It's Hydro One.
So as the transmitter, yes, correct.
Yeah. 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 So and then you'll be selling back to who?
Back to the same grid.
To the same grid.
That's right. And that's only a small portion of the actual revenues of the project. The purchasing electricity that is not expensive overnight, that say the province is investing in increased nuclear capacity, overnight rates are cheaper. That's the electricity that in general will be used to compress air into the reservoirs. Then the majority of basically almost 100% of revenues is the capacity portion of the contract. It's really having the facility on standby that during days or hours of peak energy demand, the system operator will call on the facility to inject electricity into the electrical grid. So it's overnight electricity being utilized, and then during hours of peak demand, the electricity will be injected back into the grid. And the value to the grid is that instead of the need to fire up a natural gas peaker plant or some other resource that is dispatchable, that's on demand, when we need the electricity, it can come from this project, coming from emissions-free sources. So if it's coming from overnight from nuclear, emissions-free. So generally, the electricity used to compress the air will not be from natural gas peaker plants, but we will be displacing that electricity on the grid when dispatched.
Okay,
That's-
thank
yeah.
you. Ready to move on? I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. The next question, how landowners not within the project footprint will be compensated. The project currently has a planned 2-kilometer radius of the perimeter of the project for engaging in good neighbor agreements with residences within that radius of the project. The savings potential to the Ontario Energy ratepayer is largely what I previously described, that instead of the ratepayer needing to pay for additional natural gas or other peaker generating facilities, this project can displace those energy needs. And unlike utilizing natural gas facilities, there's 2 ways that the ratepayer benefits from this project. It's utilizing that electricity from, say, natural gas, utilizing the electricity from nuclear facilities that cannot be ramped down. Once they're running, they're baseload electricity, they cannot ramp up and down, they're not flexible. Surplus electricity from those assets will be utilized and stored in this project. That's one way that the ratepayer benefits. The second way is drawing upon that electricity, injecting it into the grid, displacing natural gas facilities, like I mentioned.
Just to add to Clark's response with respect to the nuclear, also with intermittent renewables, right? Like these are, when we speak of ratepayers, electricity, the electrons generated from there, we've paid for as ratepayers, and they're gone, right? Like if the wind's blowing, but everyone's asleep, and that happens, and same with solar and other renewables. This is a way to utilize that electricity that ratepayers have already paid for.
Thank you. With regard to your first question, landowners, have you talked to landowners already and given them a compensation package?
Specifically for the good name agreement, we haven't offered a package yet. We would like to do that once there's a project, but we would like to do that confidentially with each landowner at the time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Lamport.
And just to clarify on the same line, the 2-kilometer, that's a radius from the plant, or is it radius from the pocket in the ground?
Oh, from each footprint. So mainly,
One Stanley, one Blue Water, and then the plant itself.
yes. So,
Kilometer radius
so we're-
around each of those?
well, 2 kilometers around the project. So essentially 2 kilometers from the facility, which will
Okay.
be the construction impact and so forth, but it does encompass we'll make sure it encloses the reservoir areas as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
We recognize that, I just want to be clear, like a radius may have the most impact. If it stops at a house that's within one of those areas, we will include it. We're not being strict on a line drawn on Google Maps kind of thing.
And that's what the question was,
Okay.
how it was.
Okay.
Thanks.
And what is the idea to give a compensation to this? I want to be clear. This isn't people that are that you're asking to put a pipe through the ground. That's another subject.
Right.
This is I have a house or whatever.
Yeah.
And what is the reason for wanting to do that?
You're correct in that it is not including the pipeline route, the reservoir landowners, or the topside. It is a program in place that projects implement, recognizing their houses within the area that will see increased truck traffic during construction. They'll see it on their driving once the project's complete. So it's an acknowledgement, a program in place to have an annual compensation, an agreement. The agreement will also be things where they're fully involved with, and it's financial, but also fully involved with the creation of our construction plan, procedures once the plan's operating, agricultural, whose land is around the perimeter of the project. So those sort of things as well will be in place.
Okay, and you're gonna have to have that before you go to the to go put your bid in?
That's correct.
And when is the bid again?
November 26th.
Okay, thank you. Oh, any other questions this time? If not, we'll move ahead. Go ahead.
The next question on job creation. It's expected that the project will utilize local workforce as much as possible, utilizing skilled trades around the area. The project, the needs of a workforce will gradually increase up to a peak, possibly a few hundred construction jobs created that then tapers off after a certain period of time, potentially 2 years of construction. And in terms of having hundreds of workers come to site for an extended period of time, we would utilize a construction and workforce accommodation plan that we're certainly open to engaging with the municipality on how that gets developed and utilizing local accommodation arrangements for that short-term construction workforce. In terms of longer-term job creation, we anticipate 30 to 40 full-time, long-term jobs to be generated from the facility over the 40-year contract.
Okay, there's Councillor Sangster and Councillor Groot and Councillor Whetstone, I believe. And
Right,
go for
thank
it.
you. So I'm looking at this and all the construction jobs that come in are going to be a temporary economic bump, not a long-term economic bump. It's going to put a lot of stress on our infrastructure. We already are a tourist industry. Our accommodations are already hit every year at this point. A lot of the construction you're doing is specialized, so you're going to have to bring them out from outside areas, not local construction. So therefore, there's no economic boost to our local construction companies. So how are you going to address this?
Through working together, we could establish a construction and accommodation plan with the municipality. Typically, a road use agreement would be established between the project and municipality for appropriate use of roads, time of construction, and ensuring that any cost of repairs lies with the project and not with the municipality or public funders.
Go ahead, real quick.
Thank you. So previously, when we had the wind turbine project, this is what happened. And then a lot of these accommodations and local businesses lost a lot of money and some of them actually closed down. So this is temporary boost, not a long-term economic boost to our economy.
Okay, Councillor Groot, comment or?
Sorry, I was just going to add to the specialty. Certainly, when the manufacturer here, there will be specialty work, but we have local well drillers in the province. Construction projects are temporary. That is, the nature of them. We appreciate that. We do see a lot of potential for as local as possible with, we've kind of listed a few here. High voltage, low voltage electricians. I know there's some really great local hard and soft landscaping, excavation, plumbing, HVAC, engineering is our engineer is quite local. So we do see that. We understand it's a temporary project. That's what we certainly agree with that. But the intent is for sure to be as local as possible.
Councillor Groot.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I'm going to back up a question here. It just took me a couple of minutes to process something you said on the good neighbors question. So that one there, I guess I had in my mind that you had to have the landowners at the pipe cross and where you have the wellheads, et cetera, but so you're saying you have to have everybody in a 2 kilometer radius, all the good neighbors have to be signed up before November?
No, I will clarify that for you. We need land control signed up for the bid in November. The Good Neighbor Agreement is on Capstone and Bedrock as something in addition to that. But it does form part of our bid package, understanding all the figures, all the plans in place. So it's something we will have in place, but it is not a bid requirement with the ISO.
Okay, thanks. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Whetstone, sorry.
So that actually brings up another question for me. Then from the land control perspective, what percentage do you have agreements with currently then?
I do the math, the percentage. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a percentage, whatever, you know.
Sure. The reservoir landowners are 11 different landowners. There's 2 for the top side. And as we've mentioned, the route isn't finalized, but we're approximately 17 plots of land for a possible pipeline route. And that could go up and down 1 or 2 depending on which route we end up with, but that's where we land. So, and those are easement agreements, whereas the other ones we have in place are option agreements with the reservoirs.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yeah.
And so the other question I was going to ask as part of that is that, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, and you are correct, projects are up and down. Skilled trades come from all over the place. Just, I know in my line of business, we bring them in from all over. They're not necessarily local, but they do stay here for the week and then leave again. Sometimes spend money, sometimes not. But at the same time, that is the nature of the beast when it comes to projects. So, and being that we are, the impact would probably be to Godridge, to potentially Kincardine, to wherever, because people drive over an hour now to go to work on a regular basis. So.
Okay. Councillor Groot.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a little bit of follow-up to Councillor Whetstone's question. So you're 11 plus 2 plus 17. Those are the numbers that you're saying are your estimate that you're going to be intrusive of the land, I guess, is what we're saying.
What, sorry, repeat that.
The 11 parcels of land plus 2 plus 17 parcels where you're going to be somewhat intrusive in the land to lay pipe or whatever. What percentage of those people would you have on site today? Like, what's the chances you get the rest on site by November?
Yeah, it's only the approximate 17 that we do not have agreements with yet. So those are in discussions continuing. And that is for the air pipeline route only. We have the reservoirs agreements in place and the topside agreement in place. Yeah.
I believe this was certainly discussed probably at open homes before, but so on, as Tanya said, anything that's a reservoir subsurface lease is in place, has been in place. Anything required for topside infrastructure, so visible power generation compression, that's been in place via an option to purchase, option to lease agreements. The easement route, to be clear, is what we're working on. The reason why it's a little bit delayed from the rest of it is typically a project would build a high voltage transmission line across to connect wide spans. We've been in the community, as I said, about 9 years, speaking with local residents there, and we put it to them, would you prefer that we try to keep things below ground or not have it, have to farm around these structures, these towers? The answer was yes. So that had started a little bit later in our process with the air pipeline. So I just want to give that context there.
So God, there's not only air pipelines you're talking about, you were also talking about putting hydro lines too. I didn't realize that. Okay.
We're not in addition to, right? That was a part of the original plan some time ago. And that's typically, I mean, like 99.99% of projects that had a spacing like that would use electrical wires. Again, this was consideration after speaking with the impacted residents directly, that they would much prefer the ones who are interested at this time that we have discussions to not have towers on their properties. So we changed course.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Is there any more questions? Go ahead.
So this may be a good time because we're talking about land at the same time. So I just want to know, I have a letter that, and I know you'll be familiar with this. from back in April 29th, 2021, where Mr. Sangululi, I know I messed up your name, but requested from the Minister of Energy to amend the leave the construction provisions, which basically requesting to add this into this type of project into should some landowners not actually sign up, that you were requesting that to be amended so that would go to a tribunal basically for expropriation. So I'm just curious, what was the response from the ministry at that time?
Okay, just go ahead and answer what.
Oh, thank you for that question. At the time, I can't remember dates exactly, but around that time, the new legislation was being thought of and created for various forms of pipeline, and they would receive the same regulatory powers as all utilities. Compressed air wasn't a part of that, so being a developer, we participated in that process. We spoke to landowners who are, again, a part of the project, who were signed up to the project. If that's something we're going to investigate, what were thoughts? Thoughts were mixed, right? So we did have these discussions. We did submit that. Right now, we're not seeking expropriation. We haven't for some time. We've actually been in a several-year process with a landowner committee. It was a committee established by landowners on negotiating the air pipeline compensation. And that has been 3 years.
Okay, I think we need to get this cleared up, or you may be in a really hot water and it's not with me. I want to be clear, there is no, under the act now, I gather we all lobby for things, but I think you misunderstood, okay? The remarks or the question, I'll put it that way. The act is clear, compressed air is not part of expropriation. Well, that's what he was asking about.
It is not.
It's not, yeah. So I just appreciate that it didn't come across that way, because 3 years ago, there was this discussion and people were asking me, like, Paul, can this be expropriated? And I said, well, you got to talk to your higher up politicians. But I thank you for even the letter that you were sending around to that I referred to you earlier. You have it right in there. Expropriation is not, compressed air is not in there. And when you asked Paul to talk to me, Paul was quite clear about that. So I wanted to make sure that I was quite clear. I think we just had a miscommunication there. Okay, there's no allowance for compressed air to be expropriated. Thank you. Okay, drive on. I'm glad, thank you for bringing it up because we needed that cleared up. Council, do you have another question?
Yes, along the lines with the 2 kilometers, how far back is your facility from the road?
So it's about 300 meters. We've set it back, if you have the site plan in your mind, I'm happy to bring it up again. 3 properties, we've put it across all 3 properties at the back to keep it far back from Goshen line as far as possible, up against the Hydro One easement, leaving room for berms with 2 access roads in. So we're as far back as we can with our design today.
And have you talked to all the landowners on the far side of that road?
Can you clarify what you mean by far side, please?
So the circle would
The
go
lake
from
side.
one concession road to another, I guess.
So you got Goshen line, your
Yeah.
top side's here. Have you talked to these 3 property owners on this side?
Across the street on Goshen
Yes.
line? We've had members reach out to as many as they could reach up until this point. They've had some discussions. I've received a phone call.
Thank you for that clarification.
I'm being honest, I'm not up here I'm being truthful. We've had a representative out knocking on as many doors as possible. They've left letters with myself and Steve's cell phone numbers, and I've received a call, so I know they have been contacted, so.
Okay. All right. Moving on again, at this time. Okay. Go ahead.
In terms of operations for the project, for the entire contract term, 40 years, Capstone would be the owner and operator of the facility. And just to highlight, the 36 projects that Capstone currently operates, health and safety is the number one business priority for Capstone. At the end of the contract term, in terms of decommissioning, we anticipate that after 40 years, the facility will largely be returned to agricultural status. The land to be restored the way it was before the project, and agricultural operations to continue. And we received a question, does the project require insurance? And yes, throughout construction, the entire operations term, as with any infrastructure project, appropriate insurance will be maintained throughout the entire term.
So Deputy Mayor, sorry.
To your,
Speaking to the mic, there's people all over.
to your decommissioning plan, what about the pipe in the ground? Are you gonna take all the pipes out too?
Technical.
Yes, for the decommissioning, all the pipe that's been installed for the wells, that needs to be taken out, 7 plugs installed, surface well is removed. All of the air handling system that's running from the well pads to the main production facility, compression and production facility, that also needs to be removed and the soil restored.
So in the 40 years, you're gonna store this soil that you're taking out of the area, install this pipe and store it somewhere, so when you decommission, you're gonna haul it back to the farms?
So that decommissioning cost, it will be incorporated into the project financials, because once we are taking it out, we need to have the pipeline taken out. Once the project has been decommissioned, we need to be taking the pipe out and restoring it to its original state as it was before the project.
Okay. We're here to answer questions, and you can then have to balance out colleagues at the end of the day. That's what we're here for. Okay, we'll keep moving on to the next. Oh, sorry. Sorry, we have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. And Melissa, we've talked a lot about contractual stuff. I haven't seen or heard any input as to the environmental impact. And I'm not talking about dirt or topsoil that you're going to take off that won't come back. I walk for the last 24 years, these areas, bow hunting, walk in the woods and stuff. And the wind turbines that came in destroyed massive amounts of the animal habitat and stuff that they're just not there. And I haven't seen any concern, regard, or documentation from your group about what's going to happen. This is prime agricultural and hunting land, and it's a big appeal to Blue Water. It brings a lot of people in. I don't see any concern or input from your group at all. That have you looked at? Have you addressed it?
Yes, and if you'd like, I can jump to a few slides just so I'm talking to what we had ready to present to you today. The environmental has been actually already started. We're a bit more further advanced than other projects at this time. We have engaged with Stantec. They are environmental consultants. We will be doing 2 class environmental assessments for this project. The kickoff was for the first one in 2023 when we have a feasibility study completed. We have 1 more season reviews to do for archaeological, cultural, and heritage. Why I say there's 2 class environmental assessments that will be regulated by the Ministry of Environment, as I'm sure you know. The facilities, so the project's facilities with the transformers, compressors, expanders will have a minor transmission facility class environmental assessment. Plus the Hydro One station will have a class EA as well. So that EA will go through another full public open house, environmental assessment kickoff, feasibility study, and environmental assessment. So those 2 areas are what's regulated by the Ministry of Environment. Plus just to let you know, the air pipeline route and the 2 reservoirs are not under the regulation of the Ministry of Environment, but we will proceeding with the same reviews. That's a commitment from the project to do the same species at risk, groundwater, stormwater management, cultural heritage, and archaeology for the entire site, even though they're not regulated by the ministry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that. So I understand that you're following all the required things that you can see. That doesn't in any way address the damage it's going to do to our local animals and stuff. Not doesn't even start on it. I had farmers talk to me about looking out their doors and seeing animal stuff. This project, as done, when made, will destroy a whole swath of animals through this area. These people here are very concerned about that, and I don't see that being addressed at all.
Okay. Go
We
ahead.
have gone through over 13 site plan iterations in consultation with our environmental consultants. We've kept it away. We recognized the importance of Bayfield River. We looked at there, the 500 kV goes that far north, too close, move it away. We've tried to place the facilities where there's at least amount of impact, a smaller footprint as possible. It is taking up a footprint. We understand that. We're trying to reduce it through all of these reviews, reports, and opinions from professionals.
Go ahead.
Without an engineer's impact, this project will destroy a lot of our local environment. And what's very, very important, that's why we were here. And good for you for doing all the studies, but that's not going to change what's going to happen.
Councillor Sangster? Question?
Thank you. To follow up with Councillor Walden about prime agricultural land. That would go back to our official plan and provincial policy statements. Our prime agricultural land is important to everybody in this community, as well as to the Ontario itself. You're going to be taking up a lot of prime agricultural land. That's going to impact everything around it. And the Ontario's own energy minister had banned ground-mounted solar on prime agricultural land. And even that is a small footprint. And what you're doing is going to take up over 100 acres of farmland. So to me, I'm looking at this and going, there's no environmental asset study. There's no studies being done. So everything we're supposed to take at your face value, and there's contradictions in your reports. And this is just detrimental to our community.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, I know that maybe I didn't make it clear enough, and there's always questions and then comments, and that's fine, and I'm the worst at it. But I want to assure every councillor, we ask questions, write them down, and then in the end, we will be sitting and I'll be asking all of you, what do you think? And so try as we keep moving along here. But I appreciate, and I will try to be as easy as possible to get along here. But again, let's get the questions, and then after, time to put together your thoughts based on what you heard. Okay, moving to the next part, I guess. Tanya, please.
Thank you. So as mentioned, the agricultural impact assessment. This is a report that evaluates project sites for avoidance of prime agricultural areas, and where avoidance of prime agricultural areas is not possible, to evaluate sites on lower priority soils. So we recognize this is a prime agricultural area. We are here because of the naturally occurring geological reservoirs. So in order to bid into this, the ISO project, an AIA component 1 is part of the requirements. This report is completed, recognizing it was submitted this week for completion, review, and to the satisfaction of a council in order to make it part of the MSR. This is just component 1. The OMAFA's guidelines, component 1's per their guidelines. They worked with the ISO to create these guidelines. Part of the commitment in the MSR as well by the proponent is that components 2 and 3 will be completed. This is analysis of how the energy project on the broader system, neighboring lands, neighboring farmlands, and to work together with yourselves to mitigate these impacts. In that, as I said, the components 2 and 3 must be done during the development phase if the if the contract award is made. All of this work is public. The EA itself as well, happy to share documents there. That will be public, which can be shared with council as well and made public once it's completed. So that is the agricultural impact assessment that will be done for this project.
Okay, just a second so with regards to the first agriculture assessment, the information that you sent us, which is on like page 30 or 25, and all that report. I do recall and was pointed out by even some ratepayers and our staff picked it up. Also, did I hear you that it's to the satisfaction of us as a municipality? I just got it yesterday, last night, and I'm assuming all of council got it. And it's quite an interesting document. Full disclosure, I'm a farmer, and I had to read it a lot of times. And again, I'm not going to get into too much comments here. That's for when we get done here. But I just want to be clear, and kudos to a resident that brought it up that wondered how council could read it so fast. We haven't read it. I'm a little taken back that that's in your report as if we have.
No, can I
'Cause
clarify
that's
that?
how it reads.
Sorry,
Where I went to school.
It needs to be completed to the satisfaction. There was no intention that it's submitted and already to your satisfaction. Yeah.
We'll deal with it a little bit later, but just so you know that was in part of the package, if we would be voting for this, or you have a form to fill out. And part of that does read in there, and it does, I took it as I've supported that assessment. So just be clear on that.
Yeah.
We may agree to disagree on that, but just to be fair.
I want to be
Okay.
clear. Yeah.
Councillor Sangster?
Thank you. Why was the original engineer's report not put in the document, and why was the text not updated from the engineer?
Sorry, do you mind stating that again and clarifying that for me?
There's annotations and disclaimers as well as blocked out text in the report. Why was the updated report not sent from Stanek with updated abbreviations and notes when those changes were made?
So the two blocked out text that was brought to my attention was a pure error. It was a review back to Stantec. All it was saying is that we do have the topographic maps for all 3 sites, and they didn't have them, saying we didn't have one yet. So they took information on the topographic maps from their government documents. All I want to say is we've paid for topographic maps, so we do have them. That was an error. So the report back from Stantec will say the project has topographic maps.
Okay, so this is not an original document. You've updated it yourself with that information, and it's not from the engineer, as it says in the metadata of the document.
The report is from Stantec.
Yes, but
Yes.
you've updated it.
I have not updated. I edited it back to Stantec, and unfortunately, I did
Okay.
not remove the edits.
So
because
at
I have
this
not
point,
backfilled
that type of report, I can't accept because it's not the original one, and the metadata shows that it was updated. So I'm sorry, but
No, I understand.
that is not acceptable.
It was just
It
an error.
should be an original document,
Understand.
and Stantec should be flagged for that from you, because that is not professional.
That was an error on my part. That's all I'm saying.
With regards to the report that I read, is there any, that's where we're at on the assessment. Thank you for those comments. Can I just say that as I read it, it looked like the first part of that review looked like it was a go. It looked like it was positive that this land should be used for the topographic part where the hydro lines, et cetera, would go, transformers. I took it that it basically said it was it should be a go to the government. Is that correct? Did I
Yeah,
get an assumption as I read it?
I don't want to speak for Stantec. However, my interpretation of the report is assessing the land for the purpose of this project. And based on, we know that County of Huron has prime agricultural land. Because of the location of the reservoirs, the report is saying moving a topside facility X kilometers to where you would find that non-type of land is not suitable or reasonable for the project. It would introduce power lines, other items. So what the report is saying is due to the project, the needs of the project, it is a suitable location
Okay.
based on these evaluated criteria and
Yeah.
comparisons, right?
That's all I wanted to confirm, that that's what I gleaned from it. Whether I agree with it or not, that we'll talk about later. Okay, keep moving.
I also wanted to point out we've talked about the findings, so the mitigation measures are in the report in line with what Bedrock and Capstone have spoken about, will implement for the project. So these are erosion measures, as will be coordinated with Conservation Authority, berms and fencing, not only for what we've talked about for noise and visual, but also for with natural hedges and landscaping for wind erosion. The subsurface air pipeline will be done in stages in coordination with the landowner, proper tiling procedures with the contractor of choice to allow agriculture farming to continue after it's done. We've tried to group all the topside facilities as close as possible to minimize the footprint. Appreciating that during construction, we'll have a vehicle construction management plan. No vehicles will be able to be outside of the subject lands, no roadside parking and adequate parking during construction and post-construction. Mitigating light and noise pollution. Maintain as much of the pre-existing visual screening, so any trees and vegetation we will leave in place as much as possible to mean that separation. No alterations to any ditch, drain, or swell that are operating under the Drainage Act without prior approvals. This is also in our environmental assessment feasibility study and in the AA as well. Stormwater and management to ensure that there are no unnecessary runoffs to neighboring lands. And then the AA also speaks about the decommissioning, so in a proper form for removal and proper disposal. So I just reiterating, the AA mitigation plans is something we've already accepted, we'll be doing, and they've pointed them out as well.
Okay. I think keep moving along.
Yep.
Yes.
The construction phase, we've broken up to phases. The development phase is we expect to be about 2 years following the contract award. This is where we'll be doing the permits, approvals, and procurement, followed by approximate 3 years of the nitrogen purge and well drilling, construction, and then anticipated commissioning in 2032. Recognize there'll be a very stringent construction management plan that is originated by the project in communication and coordination with the municipality and the local community members to have a good two-way form of conversation, communication to update it and adjust as necessary. So it's important to keep that plan flexible. We recognize there's with any construction project, there'll be additional traffic and road damage. So an extensive traffic management plan. And what this does with each carrier, you identify the heavy haul routes, delivery schedules, and site access, and ensure our traffic control measures are reviewed and in place with the municipality. A road user agreement requirements with the municipality and the county will be followed, agreed to, and updated as necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good evening, councillors and mayor. For the reservoir technical safety, we have the questions and I'll be going through them individually. So in regards to the maximum pressure that the reefs are allowed to, that the reservoirs are allowed to hold, I just want to clarify that the pressure at which these reservoirs were discovered and the pressures to which we are exposing them to are two different two different values. When they are naturally occurring, they have been forming for the past millions of years. So that pressure may not be the same as the one that we are pressuring up to. However, that doesn't mean that what we are pressuring up is not allowed by the reservoir. We have core samples available from these reservoirs taken at the time of drilling, and we have done our tests on them to determine the maximum pressure that they can sustain. That pressure is within the range of 16 to 1800 psi. As per the regulations, we are only allowed to operate at 80% of that pressure. And our operating pressure is within 1100 to 1200 PSI, which also puts us within the 60 to 80% of that, 60 to 70% of that range. So we are below the threshold. In terms of evidence that proves that the daily pressurization and depressurization will not fracture. So once again, we have engineered controls in place. The first one being the safety margin. As I mentioned, that we have determined what the maximum pressure for that these reservoirs can sustain, and we are operating well below that 80% of that threshold. There is additional conservation. This contributes to the additional conservation that we are putting into our design. Additionally, we realize value that the data that we have, even though is from the legacy wells, we have proposed to the regulator that we will be drilling 2 additional wells to procure most recent data, where we will be coring the reef from the top to the bottom and running additional tests to validate that this is still the case. And only then will be submitting our final application to the regulator for approval. In addition to that, once the reservoirs are in operation, we are required by the regulator to ensure that a continuous monitoring is in place to see that what we are injecting in is what we are getting out, and at the same time to monitor the integrity of the reefs. There was some comments that this is a rock reservoir or a reef as compared to a cavern. So I just want to clarify that caverns are largely artificially created through solution mining, where you'll be injecting large volumes of water into a salt reservoir and taking out brine. Once that brine is at a concentration that is not going to dissolve the salt further, it remains in the cavern, and that's when you begin air injections. So the brine, as we are injecting air into the reservoir, the brine is pumped out, and at the same time, once you're producing air from the reservoir, the brine is increased in order to maintain the structural integrity of the cavern. In our case, Bayfield is blessed with these 2 wonderful reservoirs, and there are only a handful in the entire province. And with these reservoirs, we do not need any salt, as we do not need any water to be turned into brine in order to maintain the structural integrity of these reservoirs.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm interested on your comment that you discovered with core samples that 1800 PSI was the max. I'm interested how you discovered that.
So as part of general oil and gas drilling operations, we have equipment that when we are drilling, we take core samples in from the reservoir and we bring them to surface, package them into special canisters and send them to specialized laboratories. We subject them to tests in specific conditions and see at what maximum stress they can sustain, how much fines they are producing. We have, and all of these core tests and core data is available with the OGSR, which is the Oil, Gas, and Salt repository based in London. They have these cores that were extracted from the Stanley well, and they have the reports available in terms of what pressure they could maximum withstand.
Go ahead.
Okay, so just so I understand correct, so the core is essentially a piece of the stone that's there, and you put it under 1800 PSI. What happens to the stone at 1800 PSI? It starts to fracture.
It starts to form channels in it that would basically take away the sealing capability of that stone.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
May I add? Just for fun. So we've established that that's the maximum pressure, but just to be clear, that is not the pressure that we propose to be operating at. We're well below that at 1050 to 1100 PSI. Just as an adder to that as well, if let's say, for instance, all things equal, we were proposing a natural gas storage facility, we would not even be required to subject it to core testing. It would be a simple calculation of depth, and that's how we would reach the maximum pressure. So just to be clear, MNR has placed rigorous requirements on us, and we're meeting that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I was just interested how you got there, but thanks.
Good good points and you got to the points. All right, go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, this is, it intrigues me, the pressure's intriguing me. So you have a cavity in the ground and, you're drilling holes to determine what the rating is. If you can answer quickly, how long ago was there natural gas in that cavern? Do you remember?
Still is.
There still is now.
Yeah, it still produces, but extremely low rate.
And what was do you remember what the PSI is on the natural gas itself?
As of now, or when it was originally discovered?
Let's pretend like it was brand new.
So I'll have to go and check the records, but from my recollection, it was within the range of 500 to 600 psi. The Gulf formation, the formation that these reservoirs, this reef exists, that is the normal pressure that is experienced and discovered all across Ontario. However, that same formation is the one that's being used by Enbridge as well to store their natural gas over the summer to provide for the entire province during winter. And their current operation is at about 800 to 900 psi.
Okay. If I may follow. So yeah. So what you're telling me right now is the natural gas is roughly, let's say 800 psi. And you're going to put 1,000 psi in the same cavern. Sorry, not cavern.
Yeah.
Hoping that there's not a leak.
Yep.
Let's say hope.
Not hoping. We have the tests available. So the way the gas formed in the first place is from millions of years of compaction. That comes to a certain point that let's say if I leave it for another 100 million years, that pressure may have extended more to 600 psi to 1,200 psi, and at that point it would be this question would be like, all right, it can sustain at even 1,200 psi. The pressures at which they are discovered as compared to the pressures to which they are operated do not have to be the same. It is dependent on the rock properties that you will be subjecting to testing in order to ensure that it can withstand that pressure.
One more question, Mr. Mayor. So if you're putting 1,050 to 1,100 psi of compressed air into this cavity, at what psi are the pipelines that are going through the property owners?
And they will be subjected to the same pressures as the reservoir during injection.
1,000 to 1,100 psi pipeline going down the road.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Keep moving on then. You can appreciate council had this and was reading it before, so, but I appreciate for the public how you're going, how you're proceeding. But the council does probably have questions ready as you go.
And there was a question in terms of legacy wells, but in the Bayfield and Stanley Reservoir.
I just apologize. I was reading some stuff and I thought this was all part of it. It just coming to us too. So thank you.
There was questions raised in terms of the number of legacy wells that currently penetrate the reservoirs. As part of the Ontario's cases regulations, which Evan pointed out are much more stringent as compared to case in salt caverns or our regular oil and gas drilling, they require the project to consider neighboring activities across all pools within a specified radius. This radius is 2 kilometers. We have 2 pools in question, the Bayfield and the Stanley pool. There are 2 existing wells in Bayfield, the Porter and the Granger well. They are both producing gas right now. And there were 3 identified in Stanley. 2 of them have been plugged and 1 of them is currently producing, which will be given that it's recent and drilled up to the most recent standards available by the CSA and Ontario's regulators. It will be forming a part of the project. Maps and all other associated data for these wells, where their locations are, what their productions have been over the past years since they came into production, is all available publicly with the OGSR. The the question was, what if happens if compressed air finds an old well that was improperly plugged? Reiterating in terms of the requirement by the regulator to identify all existing wells within the pool and neighboring pools. We have identified that there are no legacy wells that have been plugged in the last 50 or 80 years that exist in these pools. And there has been, through their data collection through seismic and other production and production data analyzing, that there is no connection between the reservoirs. So that possibility is remote. In addition, these reservoirs will be getting pressurized and depressurized on a daily return cycle. And as per our design and requirements by the regulator, we will have to have monitoring in place in order to ensure that the mechanical integrity of these reservoirs is in place. Who independently verifies the condition of old wells? The proponent, the province, or a third-party engineer. So MNRF has designated the Ministry of Natural Resources as a designated department who will be verifying the well conditions when they will be issuing the well license.
Sorry, I'm kind of, I'm gonna backpedal again. I'm stuck in this stone thing just a little bit. Just trying to get it through my head. So I understand the concept of extracting the stone in your 1800 PSI. I can certainly get my head wrapped around that. How many cubic meters or square feet or whatever you would call it inside of this well that you would take the sample stone from ish? And it's going to be a big number, I'm sure.
You mean to say the volume of the sample itself?
The surface area down inside the well.
So this the cores are extracted at the time you encounter the formation. This formation, it starts at about 450 to 500 meters. Within that range, it's the top of this formation, and then it extends another 100 to 120 to 150 meter below. So that's where you start coring, so collecting your sample, and you run across the formation, collecting it, and then having that sample ready for testing.
If I could follow that up, thanks. Okay, well, that, I guess where my mind is going is it's going to be, I'm sure there's going to be square miles of surface area down in these wells. And I guess I'm thinking of a saying that a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. What assurances would there be that all the stone is going to be similar characteristics?
So with the advancement of drilling technologies, we have something called measuring while drilling and logging while drilling. These are highly highly accurate tools that identify the formations with certain markers, like in terms of what the density is, what certain items or what sort of a weight you are using in order to drill through them. These parameters are then used to identify what formation you're drilling through, and that's what we will be doing across the reservoir for all the wells that we are drilling. So the first samples that we take would be in order to validate the reservoir model that we have set up, and then there will be subsequent measurements and sample collection during the remainder well drilling in order to ensure that we are still on track.
Go ahead.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit too, because you've been treating me with the whole pipeline being 1100 PSI. Being a gas technician, I've had the privilege of seeing a gas leak at 60 to 80 PSI underground. It can move soil at 60 to 80 PSI. At 1000 PSI, I'm sure probably can move soil. Will you have some sort of safety in place if there was a possible leak in the pipeline? I know you're going to tell me that you're going to put some great steel pipe in there that's never going to leak. Will there be a shut off portion topographical at certain distance everywhere, or is it just going to puke out the whole cavern?
No, there will be that, and that forms part of our engineering controls. For the engineering controls, there was a question there was a question up ahead regarding the same. So we can control those scenarios by implementing isolations. So for example, if a regulation calls or a standard calls for isolation every 5 kilometers, we can lower that distance to, let's say, a few hundred meters and have isolations in place to restrict that effect. So in addition to that, there will be on the well pads, there will be isolations from the reservoir such that in such a remote case, the reservoir can be isolated from the pipeline. In addition to that, there will be isolations on the compression and production facility. In addition to that, there will also be isolations within the pipeline itself at certain intervals.
Which would be a topographical valve.
Topographical valves.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. And following up on Councillor Harris' question, I'm only familiar with water. Our primary Lake Huron water supply system doesn't get 200 PSI, but they have wires around the concrete casing, you know, and the wires can tell us if something's going to have a failure. But when that fails, it's about a 4-foot or bigger pipe. It takes out 200 or 300 acres in an hour, and that's not 200 PSI. We're talking 1,000 PSI. I know it's there, but that's pretty frightening to me. Like, it could destroy a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. You said 5 kilometers is the requirement of valves?
I didn't say it's a requirement. I'm saying if the regulation or standard calls for 5 kilometer, we can shorten that distance to something that's more amenable. And
That is a massive amount of pressure, sir. So that just sounds somewhat frightening to me.
So,
All right, any more questions on that? We'll keep moving along here.
So the next question was, could residual natural gas remain in the depleted reservoirs, and under what conditions could the mixture be combustible or explosive? So there, as Steve and Evan pointed out, there is still gas in the reservoir. The Porter, Granger, and Tribute 25, they're still producing gas. Last I checked the records, they were at about 20 PSI wellhead pressure. As part of the project's operations, before we start injecting air, the project will be conducting a 3-year-long nitrogen purge, where we will be taking nitrogen from the atmosphere and injecting it into the reservoir. Nitrogen is much heavier than hydrocarbons. The objective of this exercise would be to push the hydrocarbons and nitrogen mixture out from the from the wells from the producing wells, and resulting in a nitrogen-rich mixture in the reservoir. This brings down the hydrocarbon content in the reservoir, residual hydrocarbon content in the reservoir, to well below the lower explosive limit of 4%. Our modeling has shown that this number is 10 to 100 times less once the nitrogen purge is complete. So that nitrogen purge once, in addition to that, once we start injecting air, that nitrogen still acts as a buffer between the hydrocarbons and the injected air, because the hydrocarbons will have to break through the nitrogen in order to be mixing with the air. And even in that remote scenario, they are well below the lower explosive limit. And in the absence of an ignition source, the possibility of a combustion or explosion is extremely remote. Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Sorry, unless
go
you
ahead.
had like.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I just like to pick up on, as I've seen both comments from residents, and also I believe at least one of the councillors had picked up on the Sandia report, which by all measures is a great indicator of compressed air and porous rock. However, I just want to qualify some key distinctions that might be valuable to the discussion here. First and foremost, through that report, at no point had they ever considered actually removing the residual hydrocarbons. In fact, their proposal was to leave the hydrocarbons in place and hope that physics would kind of solve it effectively for them, that it would create a bubble pushing it further down. In our case, we've proposed, as is a requirement, I might add, from the Ministry of Natural Resources, that we are removing the residual hydrocarbons to remove that risk. Furthermore, the risk of auto ignition, I guess is the correct term for this. That was contemplated as a risk within that report, considering the fact that that compressed air, call it engineering philosophy, proposed that they would be burning natural gas to heat the air as it was coming out. So it would reach up to 600 degrees, and beyond 540 degrees with the mixture that my colleague has described of between 5 and 15%, that would actually lend itself to auto ignition. So in both cases, we are well below that mixture of gas and air, and we are well below the temperature that would cause auto ignition. So I just want to clarify, because I know that's caused some measure of concern, and without that, the benefit of context, it does seem quite frightening. So thank you.
So we're here to gather information. Councillor Groot.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You probably answered a bit of my question. I was just wondering, when you're talking about that 4% LEL, a lower explosive limit, can you help educate me a little bit on what 4% LEL means? 4% of what?
So 4% content of basically the combustible gas in a mixture. So with the presence of an ignition source. So it's a measured property for hydrocarbons, methane, which is the primary content of natural gas in these reservoirs, that has a LEL of 4%. Higher octane hydrocarbons, they have higher LELs, and that basically is a measured property that you'll be determining in the lab tests and everything, similar to the core testing that we perform.
And does this testing continue on? Or once the hydrocarbons are gone, like we're convinced they're gone forever?
So the modeling is one, and then while performing the nitrogen purge, we will be monitoring the nitrogen and hydrocarbon mixture that's being produced to the point that we are content that the hydrocarbons are well below the LEL. In addition to that, as part of the operations for the compression and production, we cannot be having hydrocarbons present in the plant. Therefore, there will be appropriate we can say cleaning mechanisms in place to ensure that that hydrocarbon does not enter the facility. Apart from that, we will also be having, as per the regulations, we are required to have continuous monitoring in place to ensure that those hydrocarbons stay within the limits that we have determined them to be.
Okay. Carry on.
Regarding the wells, so there was a question into what would constitute what would be a credible worst case failure of an injection or withdrawal well. So these are typical oil and gas, similar to oil and gas wells that are drilled and cased and cemented in place. So a worst case failure for these wells would be that we lose the integrity in envelope, like meaning that the well is not performing up to its parameters. So let's say if I'm trying to inject at 1200 psi, I'm unable to get the pressure built up. At this point, we will be investigating in terms of what the cause of that non-performance is, and if required, we will be plugging and decommissioning the well. Based on underground conditions, this could take isolation can be completed within a few days. In regards to the emergency planning zone, the regulation, as part of the regulation, we are required to submit an emergency preparedness and response plan. This will be implemented on the plants on the plant, and we will have specialized equipment and personnel available to cater to such a worst case scenario. They will be part of the plant's workforce.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry, just a bit of clarity on the isolation in a few days of if a well was failing, like not allowing pressure to be where you want it at. Just for my own mind, so when you're saying take a few days, it'd be one of the wells, I can't remember how many wells you said are going down to the cavern, like 20, 30.
And there are 24 wells that will be at surface, and underground they will have a number of laterals from each of the main wells. So we are averaging about 2 to 3 laterals. So the total number is about 76 to 80 wells.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, carry on, sir.
In regards to the wells and surface facilities proximities to homes, barns, schools, or school roads and property lines, the locations will be complying with the minimum setbacks prescribed under the Ontario's Oil and Gas Resources Act. This current prescribed distance is 75-meter separation from a licensed well or facility, while well surface locations are subject to applicable setbacks, including 75-meter from dwellings and agricultural, commercial or industrial buildings, and 50-meter for road allowances and utility rights of way. There was questions raised if the council and residents receive the quantitative risk assessment before municipal approvals are granted, and Bedrock and Capstone's response is yes, the council is welcome to request required information before granting any approvals. The current exercise, as Steve had highlighted in the beginning of the presentation, is to allow the next steps in submitting a bid. If successful in bidding, the project will be submitting appropriate approvals to the municipality for municipalities, regulators, and government bodies. And these bodies are welcome to request any data that they may require to grant the necessary approvals.
Okay.
In regards to the system shutdown time and isolation during a major emergency or power failure, these are parameters that are decided and agreed upon during the detailed phase of the design and after discussions with the appropriate stakeholders and affected parties. So the exact figure will be determined during that phase. However, we have considered automatic operations through actuated valves, breakers, and other equipment to ensure that a quick response to such an event. As mentioned before, there will be continuous monitoring for the reservoir pressures and volume to ensure what we are injecting is what we are producing, and that the structural and mechanical integrity of the reefs is in place while the project is operating. Our planned efficiency for the project is within the range of 65%. So any deviation from this would be a indication for the project to step back, for the project operations to step back and evaluate and return to course. The current measurable thresholds are the ones that are set by regulators. For example, as I mentioned in the beginning, 80% of the maximum pressure allowed by the reservoir, that our operating pressure cannot exceed that at any point. The regulator will not grant the approval, and other thresholds will be determined as the project progresses along and submits the required approvals. If monitoring of the reservoir during operations determines that there is air that the injected air and the produced air is not matching, i.e. that we have that would be an indication that air may be leaving the reservoir, and this would be grounds for the project to notify MNRF and ISO in terms of the project status, and an investigation will be undertaken to determine what the issue is and return operations to normal. Subsurface combustion hazards, as already mentioned, the reservoir will be nitrogen purged to keep the LEL below the required 4%. In addition to that, as Evan pointed out, the gas to air ratios, as highlighted in the Sandia report, need to be within 5 to 15% and surpass temperatures of 540 degrees Celsius in order to auto ignite. And we are operating at about 50 degrees. We are injecting air into the reservoir at 50 degrees, which is 10 volts less than that. In addition to that, we are proposing, as mentioned, as part of the nitrogen purge, to remove hydrocarbons from the reservoir till they are at about 0.4% of residual hydrocarbons, and injecting air at 50 degrees as part of our submission to the MNR, allowing us to be within well below those thresholds and to remove the risk of combustion or explosion.
And I might add also that aside from our third-party reviews, the MNR still also reserves the right to request further reviews on like that we would be subjected to. So that's at their discretion, having reviewed everything that we've submitted. Thank you.
And
Counselor Groot?
Okay, thanks. One more question on the nitrogen purge. I think I'd be correct in thinking, so when you're ready, when you start pumping compressed air in these wells, the nitrogen purge is not happening anymore then, right?
that is correct.
They
So
can't happen simultaneously.
that is correct.
Yeah.
We can consider in terms of the operational philosophy for the plant to have those rigs on standby. But once our monitoring has determined that the nitrogen, that the mixture coming out is nitrogen rich, those can be retired and moved away to begin compressed air operations. Lastly, in terms of our review of our reservoir modeling, geotechnical work and risk analysis, Bedrock and Capstone's response is yes. We have had third-party reviews completed by independent engineering firms who bear no financial involvement in the project. There are 3 independent firms who have reviewed all the reports, and there are additionally 3. All the geology for the reservoirs has been evaluated by 3 geologists within the province of Ontario who have a total of a century's worth of experience between them.
Okay. Counselor Lamport, question?
More just a summation, make sure more on layman's terms, because you got to do a lot of terminology that might be a little bit over my head, but I just want to clarify. So there's leftover gas in the reservoir. You push out the leftover gas. You put in your compressed air. Later on, the compressed air comes out. If there's any leak or resurgence of gas in the line somewhere before it goes into the compressor in the actual plant, you have a separation system that then pulls the gas out again. So
That's correct.
am I right in assuming that's a safety feature to make sure that the gas is not getting into the plant if for some reason gas somehow is being produced again?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank
The operation for the machinery has certain thresholds that will be designed to cater for these. So that's why we have to have those measures in place in order to ensure a safe operation of the plant.
Thanks. Okay. Moving on then.
I believe I covered the EA information previously, so unless there are questions, I don't need to run through it again, but.
At this time, nothing.
Okay, so.
Go ahead. Sorry. Counselor Groot.
I do have a question on a comment just a couple of minutes ago, and maybe Dave came across our desk via email and I have missed it. You said there are third-party independent reviews that have no financial bearing to this project. Third-party independent reviews, are those available to the public?
As mentioned, they can be made available to the council on request, since they form part of our bid. Thus, we'll have to ensure that we are exercising the necessary required precautions.
Confident, yeah. Thanks.
Just before we got to 9, I thought I read something about a question about we'll be using natural gas at the site. Did I miss that? Is that on here? Because I thought I saw it, but now I don't see it.
It's number 8 still.
No, that's not a problem. I just thought maybe I was losing.
So as a key differentiator between our project and, let's say, the one that exists in Alabama and likewise the one in Hundorf, Germany, our system is proposing to encapsulate a philosophy of adiabatic haze. And in layman's terms, imagine you have a spray can, it's under high pressure, and when you keep spraying it, it freezes. And effectively, the same concept is at play here with the compressed air. And so as it's being released into the turbine, you have to heat it some way. Now, traditionally, when air was being compressed, there was either A, not as much attention being paid to the temperature it was being injected in, or B, if it was simply being bled off with what's called intercoolers. Our system proposes to use heat exchangers to capture that heat that's being generated through the compression cycle so that it would draw in from 350 degrees, withdraw that heat and store it in a thermal energy storage tank. In our case, we're proposing to use a molten salt system. And it would draw the heat down right down to 50 degrees. After that point, it will be injected into the ground. Upon discharge, as the air is being released, the system, you could imagine, is played in reverse, and that heat is utilized and heats the air as it's being discharged. So effectively, we remove the need for natural gas and maintain a hydrocarbon-free system.
Okay. I think everybody understands that one.
There we go.
Move to the next question.
Oh. As part of our drilling program, we have to follow CIS guidelines as well as rigorous MNR MNR regulations. And so effectively, I guess I could boil this down to this. We've mapped the surrounding area as provided by the Oswald Bayfield Conservation Authority on where we would find aquifers, where we wouldn't find aquifers. The proposed area in which we will be drilling is aquifer free. And so from that measure alone, we are avoiding actually hitting the drinking water that we're considering. Do we hit water in general? I have to say yes, but there are caveats to it. So as you're drilling down 500 meters below surface, you're hitting different geological formations. So as you do, one of the prescribed requirements is to stop at each geological formation, you cap it with cement, and you continue on, just to ensure that there's no transmigration between each layer. We pass, I believe, over the course of the 500 meters, there are 2 to 3 underground rivers, one of which is actually a sulfuric river, which I'm happy to say I only learned having started this job. Kind of cool, but nevertheless, it is not something that would directly impact drinking water. Suffice it to say, we're not drinking sulfuric water. But all that to say, as per the requirements of the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Canadian Safety Authority, we maintain a rigorous drilling program that will ensure the integrity of the groundwater, drinking water, however we want to describe that here in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, people understand that. Carry on.
Okay. On a roll.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Could you back up a little bit? I was trying to visualize as you were saying. So you're gonna drill holes, let's say, and if you come across something that you don't like, say water or something like that, you're gonna cap it off concrete or.
So the way it works,
Not concrete, as per any any drilling practice, as you're encountering different formations, they behave differently when you are traversing them. So you need to isolate them through a casing, which is a steel pipe in the ground, and then seal it with cement. This is regular Class G cement, free of any gravel or any additives that could impact any of the formations or even that fresh water. So if you do encounter those aquifers, you will be required, as per the ministry's regulations, to have a casing installed, cemented in place, and then drill further. In addition to that, we'll also have to ensure that the casing is tested and sealed, and the cement is set properly and providing the required sealing such that no cross contamination from the below formations can occur.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for explaining that to me. It's fantastic. So how many of holes are going to be drilled until we find that hole? How many casings are going to be in the ground? And in 40 years, we're going to take that back into its natural state when we've got a bunch of tubes sticking out of the ground because you've drilled. Oh, there we have found it. That kind of idea. You understand?
So just to get more information, so in terms of finding the pipe under the ground after it's been decommissioned, so current casing plans that we have planned for is 13.38 inch, 9.58, and then 7-inch that enters the reef. So the 13-inch is expected to go up to a depth of 100 to 120 meters, and then further till the next size goes up to 400 meters, and then another 5, and the 7-inch goes up to 500 meters just before we enter the reef, and then we start those laterals as we have planned for in order to have those multiple entry points. In addition to that, as part of our well license application to the ministry regulator, we are required to put upfront the decommissioning costs as security to be held in escrow. As part of the decommissioning, we are required to take out all the pipe, install cements, take out the maximum pipe possible from the ground and cut the remaining pipe and cement it in place and fill the holes with cement and then bring it back up to the till we get to the top 10-20 meters where the soil can be restored.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Or where we're at here.
We're at noise and light considerations, I
Yes.
believe. So what will residents hear during normal operations, startup and shutdowns? So just to be clear, the Environmental Protection Act does set a limit of 40 decibels. And so we have to engineer it based on that. It's not, it's going to be, let's say, just I'm pulling a number out of my head, 100 decibels, and that's what we're going to work with and move the plant accordingly. No, we have 40 decibels as the requirement based on a perimeter that's set, and we have to design it accordingly. So how do we do that? There is casings around the compressor or around the turbo machinery in general. We build the facility itself with either concrete or alternatively, like let's say Zane could help me out on this one, but like an acoustic steel. Like you have to engineer the building to be able to reduce the actual sound.
So we have engineering controls in place, which can start from as simple as as an engine and exhaust on the turbo machinery such that it is reducing the noise generated. Then in addition to that, the facilities can be isolated either with a single concrete wall or with multiple layers as required to reduce the level. And then in addition to that, we also highlighted the use of berms. So as we move further away from the plant, the noise that would be audible to the person walking by the plant would be well within the required limits of 40 decibel or lower.
Just want to get an idea here then, like my further question down the road will be more about the economics, but I'd just like to know, so you're operating this daily? So every night and every day?
That's right. So we will be
so we have peak days every day?
So yeah, I will be deferring that to one of the team members over here, but in terms of charging the reservoir, it will be done primarily at night when the rates allow, and then based on whenever the grid operator calls upon us for operation, which would ideally not ideal, but which would most likely be times during the day is when we'll be discharging and producing the power.
So
it could be the operations for the plant is planned on a daily cycle. However, it would be up to the grid operator in terms of when they need us, when they call us to have that generation available.
So may I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you don't get the grid operator calling you, do you still have to run it at night?
No. So once we have charged it up to the required pressures and we have the volume and pressures available, we can be considered as a stand down till the grid operator calls on us to produce.
So you expect that this is going to run daily though?
That is the current modeling that we have done.
Councillor Lamport?
Yeah, so just back to the noise and the 40 decibel. Did you give us a distance? Like where's the 40 decibel measured? Is it measured 100 meters away from the front of the building, around the building? Like where is it actually measured?
So it should be 100 meters from the building itself. So by measure, it's about 300 meters from the building to the street.
To the street, yep, that's what you said.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay, I guess on to the next question. please.
Will there be low frequency noises that will travel through the ground and disrupt neighbors and livestock? So noise impacts are site specific and are addressed through the equipment. So effectively how we're designing the actual, the building itself, how the turbo machinery is placed within the building. These are all factors that are considered to minimize the actual vibrations and noise that are actually permeating from the building itself. I don't know if I have anything more to say on that other than the fact that this is like an engineering consideration that you don't want it to vibrate effectively.
Okay, Councillor Sangster.
Thank you. Looking at the low frequency noises and the ground noise, some livestock and some animals are more attuned to that. So how are you going to guarantee it's not going to upset farms and other migratory birds?
What?
As I said, the intention is to design the turbo machinery, which is the main component that will cause the actual vibration, to minimize it. I mean, if you're asking if there's a guarantee on whether or not livestock will be disrupted, I don't know if I could quite answer that just because you don't know how you're going. In all fairness, you do not know what the impact will be just in general. This is a bit of a difficult question to answer. All I'm saying is that from an engineering perspective, the building itself and the turbo machinery as placed within it will be minimized in terms of the consideration of vibrations.
Okay, no, you give your answers and that's very good. Okay, moving on. Sir.
So moving on to light consideration. So a few questions have come around with respect to whether or not people will be able to see the night stars. It should be said that as a bare minimum, there will be some lighting requirements for safety purposes of the building itself, but every measure and every opportunity to minimize that, of course, will be taken into account, and dark skylights will be implemented.
Okay. Thank you. Next question, I guess.
Okay, so what should we expect to see from the Goshen line and the surrounding area of the facility? This has been a hot topic question. There have been concerns over interrupting the view of, I suppose, the hydro line and the windmills. Effectively, from Goshen line, what we anticipate seeing is a berm with trees that would obstruct the view of the actual facility itself. I would liken this to, as I drive through southwestern Ontario on a frequent basis, passing the farmhouses, I typically see them surrounded by trees to presumably block both wind and also create a measure of privacy. And that's quite literally the same concept that we hope to employ here. In fact, not hope, that's the intention.
Okay. Drive on.
Right, so there were concerns raised about groundwater being contaminated with the drilling of the wells. There was concerns raised by the groundwater being contaminated with the well drilling. As mentioned, that our drilling plan accounts for isolation of the groundwater as soon as we encounter it, which is expected to be 100 to 120 meters, where it will be cased and isolated with a cement seal. Before commencing any drilling operations, as part of our plan with Stantec, we will be collecting nearby freshwater samples from nearby freshwater wells, and these will provide a baseline for comparison if before, during, and after drilling. There was concern raised for reservoirs allow for oxidation and heavy metal leaching directly into the surrounding groundwater. As mentioned, that the hydrocarbons will be cushioned there would be a heavy nitrogen cushion between the injected air and the hydrocarbons that would have been remaining in place after the minute amount of hydrocarbons that will be left in place after the nitrogen purge. In addition to that, the pressure cycling, oxygen injection, and hydrocarbon does not react with the minerals in terms of the design of the casings. And apart from that, as mentioned for the groundwater, that given that it would be isolated from the subsequent formations that would be encountered below, the risk of contamination would be extremely remote. Yep.
Okay.
There have so I won't go through the details of here, but I'll just be giving an overview in terms of our drilling plan on how it has been catered to ensure that we have taken the appropriate measures to ensure no groundwater contamination. Identification and isolation of the freshwater zones early. The drilling plan recognizes that the potable groundwater occurs at with the upper top of it being about 67 to 73 meters, and the lowest one that has been discovered at 100 to 120 meters. And as soon as we will be entering this freshwater, as soon as we enter this territory, we'll be installing the casings and cementing it in place. Installation of multiple layers of steel casing and cement. As we progress, any formations that we encounter that could cause contamination for the aquifers will be cased and cemented in place. Verification of the cement seal. After the installation of the casing pipe and having a cement job completed, there will be logging and testing done to ensure that the cement seal is as per the parameters that have been set out, and these will be validated by the regulator. Groundwater monitoring while drilling. As mentioned, we will be taking samples before we commence drilling in order to ensure that we have a baseline reference, and we will be continuously monitoring groundwater during the course of the drilling to ensure that there is no contamination occurring. As mentioned already, that we'll be establishing a baseline for the groundwater conditions, and we will be pressure testing the well throughout the construction. So any casing, any pipe that is used to case any of the formations will be tested to ensure its integrity before we move on further onto the next well or onto the next section of drilling for the next formation.
Okay. Next question.
The air handling system, I believe the first one's been covered, where we've established the 17 plots of lands estimated are required for land control for the bid. Zane covered the setbacks for the high pressure, spoke about the pressures in the pipeline. The setbacks, the pipeline is to be designed in accordance with the CSA, and the separation will be designed according to unique requirements for each location and with a risk assessment in place. Crossings of roadways will be completed in compliance with both the municipality and the county. We did speak about why the project chose to do buried air pipeline. It was instead of the alternative, which is the electrical lines and towers. The buried pipeline allows agricultural land to continue after construction has been completed and farm activities to continue.
Go ahead. So just for my understanding, if you were not able to get the landowners or whatever route you're choosing, would it be the thoughts that you would seek approval from the municipality to have the transmission line placed within the road allowance?
No, the project that we've proposed to the community, to council to date is the project we're seeking to build. We're hopeful that if we're permitted to continue on with this project, we'd want to continue discussions on the air pipeline. Those are discussions and commitments we made with the landowners we've spoken to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, final organized slide here is permits and regulatory approvals. So these are the required permits and approvals after a contract award that would be required by the project and before we build. Municipality Blue Water and Huron County controlled the site plan approvals, building permits, the additional agricultural impact assessments, the 2 Class A's we mentioned for both the topside facility and the Hydro One station regulated by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. The Ministry of Natural Resources regulates the well licenses and drilling permits, and the Oslo Bayfield Conservation Authority permits. And again, the MSR process is one step to that. All of these regulations and regulatory approvals and permits will be in place prior to any work being completed. And just for clarity, the Class A MR applications do become public documents once they submitted and deemed complete.
Nate? Carry on.
That's the end of the list of our questions that we've compiled and responded to, and we'll hear from council in a moment. Just again, we want to thank you, all of us here at Bedrock and Capstone, for spending a lot of time, your interest in the project. We're happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Lambert has a question right now.
Yeah, if I could just back up to the noise. There's a side of me that wishes I could go to Alabama and stand beside it, but then I should ask the question, it was Alabama and Germany, do they have the same requirement of the 40 decibel, or is this a Ontario requirement?
This would be an Ontario requirement, and I wish I could be the best person to answer this. However, Zane could speak more to just sound dampening of like compressors overall, which for the purposes of this discussion, I feel are, analogous and frankly straightforward here.
So if we are talking about dampening of there was some mention in the literature of compressors, our regular compressors that the farmers and the public would be using in their barns and yards. That compressor, if you scale up, definitely the noise level increases, but at the same time, those compressors that you're using do not have any sound muffling in place. When we are talking about these industrial size compressors, you would have to look at the examples of the turbo machinery being employed by the likes of Ontario Power Generation or Bruce Power. These are 1,000 megawatt turbines that are operating on the floor, and when you're standing even next to them, with simple earplugs, you are able to dissipate it. So that, you're able to have the noise dissipated at a level that you can comfortably walk and operate on. And as soon as you step outside of the building, the noise starts dampening out to the point that once you're about 30 or 40 meters away, the noise is completely non-existent.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we do have reports that our staff pulled together. Council, I do believe you got those beforehand, but in fairness to the put together, if you have any questions on that, or just want a quick summary from those for the public, if anything. Quick summary. Dave, start off with your comments on the road issues.
Yep, through you, your worship. So just very quickly, and again, it was a little bit difficult to provide some of the comments just because there is some variability with the information that was provided, or unknowns for the information that was provided. But just within there, one thing that I had commented on was related to sorry, if you excuse me for a minute, just was related to the having a road user agreement in place for use of any of the roads that would be considered, obviously, namely the fact that the topside plant is placed on Goshen, so we would have something in place for that. But again, anything in consideration for any other locations that would be used in conjunction with the installation of the works, and then obviously associated traffic impact studies for those for work during and after. So based on the information that was provided, assuming that traffic after the volumes wouldn't be significant, but during construction, I think it's safe to assume that it would be significant. That is just trying to bring up the report here, but that's primarily the largest concern that, or I should say, the largest point that I think that had to be made through the public works aspect of things, and just again related to the consideration of the finances estimated in today's dollars for replacement. And again, having had experience in this in the past, where we were dealing with this with some of the wind turbines. It is, our experiences have lent us to believe that it is likely that damage would occur just due to the sheer volume of the road. And so as such, wanted to make it very clear the dollar figures that we're talking about in that circumstance. And again, using today's dollars, using information that we have available to us today.
Okay. I think straightforward right now, but it might become part of the discussion later. Over to our treasurer, Maggie McBride. I did ask her to put together what our assessments are now, colleagues. I thought that was important to see because, you know, there's a side here, we're getting maybe new taxes. But I just wanted to remind it, and with the computers we have and the staff we have, she said that's no problem. So council, that's why we got that. Just to remind us that there's money there and there may be part of that discussion when we get to that point. I know I had it one, but again, I'll wait till then. But to any questions to Maggie, and what did you all glean since the last few weeks trying to figure all this out?
Sure. So through your worship, to council. So one of the questions that I was asked was to pull some information regarding properties within a 2-kilometer radius and then also within a 5-kilometer radius. So just to summarize that, within a 2-kilometer radius, there's approximately 45 properties, and then within a 5-kilometer radius, there's approximately 357 properties. And I should note to that when I say properties, I mean tax roll accounts, okay? So if there's a piece of farmland with a house and the farm and it's all together, all one roll, I'm counting that as one property. So within a 2-kilometer radius, so for Blue Water's levy only, not counting any funds that are collected for the county levy or education, that makes up 0.86% of the total taxes to be collected in 2026. And then when I look at a 5-kilometer radius, those properties are contributing 5.9% of the total 2026 levy for Blue Water. Within the report as well, I've just included some maps just to give an approximate area of where kind of that data pull is for that 2-kilometer and 5-kilometer radius. The next section that I commented on was the impact on annual budget. I think it's just important to note that when development takes place, it's not free money to the municipality. We're still continuing to offer services and we're still required to provide services. So what I've illustrated in the report is trying to illustrate how pulling together the budget works, and specifically the property tax levy. Property taxes make up just under 50% of all the annual income for the municipality. Our other 50% is coming from our water sewer user fees, things like building permits, other types of revenues that we're collecting. So we're relying on property taxes for about 50% of our budget. I know how much to collect in property taxes based on the budget that's set by council. So for 2026, that amount was just over $11 million. That amount then is how much comes from each property. Is all made up of, everyone goes into a different category, whether it's residential or commercial, industrial. We have aggregates, we have managed forest classes. All gets broken up based off how much assessment I have into each class. And then each class has a different tax rate. So taking that all into account is how I determine how much property taxes needs to come from residential versus commercial, industrial. Each different tax class is contributing a different amount to the levy based off how much that tax class makes up of Blue Water's total assessed value. So For example, if an additional $150,000 was going to be collected from a property, it's not additional. If we still only needed to collect $1 million for that, for the tax levy, okay? So what that would mean is if I had a new property where it was going to earn, for example, $150,000, it shifts my ratios between my other tax classes, okay? It doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're getting 11 million plus 150,000 more. We get 150,000 more if we establish through the budget that we need to collect 11 million plus $150,000 more. So that's what I tried to illustrate on the impacts of the annual budget. Some of that information can be found too through the annual budget, through some of the slides I provide. MPAC has a really great video as well explaining how this works. The next question I was asked, I kind of have already addressed, is what could the assessed value be? And that's not something that staff or MPAC feel comfortable providing at this time, or even providing a range at this time. So there's some points within here as well of there's just unknowns that we can't speak to. And the last point within my section is I was asked, what about the impacts on neighboring property values? Could they see a decrease in their property values? And MPAC communicated to us that that's not something they can answer at this time. When they look at devaluing a property, they use what they call indicators. A primary indicator for devaluing a property is sales information surrounding there. So they wouldn't be able to look until after a proposed development takes place to see if then, once the development is there, if sales numbers started to decrease, and if they did, then they could. They did note to us, however, that wind turbines did not negatively impact property values. And again, this is where I say this is MPAC's assessment values, not market values. Those are not one and the same, and those are two very different things. And those are my sections if anyone has any follow-up questions.
At this time, thank you for the information.
Your worship,
Go
just
ahead.
if I can, sorry, I apologize. I missed one piece in my section as well. I just wanted to make note as well, and I'm sure as I'm sure everybody has read it as well. Just Blue Bluff Road, there's a section of Blue Bluff Road that, again, making the assumption that there would be consideration towards purchase or some sort of arrangement for use of that road. To some extent, as it's identified, or as it was identified in the information that was provided on Monday night. And so if it was the case that it was to be sought after to purchase that road, it would be subject to the highway closure and land disposition policy. There's a number of points that are included within the report that it would be subject to. And so ultimately it would have to satisfy the terms of the policy as well, just for council's awareness.
No, thank you. Okay. Council, is there any questions to, are we prepared to have discussion here now and see where we go? Councilor Groot?
I do have one question. It probably goes right back to the start, maybe for the group here again. You're thinking of that MSR, the Municipal Support Resolution. So if one were obtained tonight, is there any recourse that comes back to the municipality afterwards again, or I guess like then the project's just off and running if the MSR is awarded?
Thank you for that question. No, the project isn't necessarily off and running insofar that an MSR doesn't now permit us to go build. The next immediate steps. So one, it would say, okay, well, here's some questions. We've had discussions. There's still some concerns. We want to investigate it. We, Bedrock, are proposing to submit some reports to council, be it the EA, some peer review engineering that we discussed, and we have a list here that we could share. From that, might want to review some more, have discussions. Our next immediate action is to still pursue the air pipeline route, for which we require 100% easement agreements to be signed up to in order to bid into the project. There are other considerations in this pre-development stage before we get to November 26. At that point, we'd have to package a bid, commit to our finances over the next 40 years, win that bid. When that would be announced next year in Q2 or Q3, we then have to be able to satisfy all regulatory approvals and provincial permits. When all of that happens, and I am doing this at a high level, then shovels will go in the ground, and that are years away from now. So this is essentially the first step to say, we permit you to proceed down this pathway in pursuit of bidding in to the ISO's RFP process.
On follow up on that a little bit, a few minutes ago, Stephen, I think, was when Mr. Kester asked about, would you consider maybe coming down our roads? And you said, no, this is the project. But I think I heard you saying, and if we're given permission to carry on, we'll be talking to the landowners. What has stopped you? Is that what I heard you say?
We would continue discussions.
Yeah.
With
What in 2023 when you were here? We didn't hear anything about this. All of a sudden it was getting phone calls from people saying people are coming and wanting to talk about using our land. And I said, well, they're allowed, I guess. And then there was a discussion and you came, or things evolved. And one of the things, and as you pointed out, the council has to be a willing host. Is that the word we still use? Back then it was willing host, I guess. Now, so are we talking about the same words, willing host? Is that fair enough that we're supposed to give some permission? But as was stated back then, and I guess we'll deal with this now, what stops you from working with the people? Like you talked about 3 years you've been working or whatever. Are you saying tonight then if we don't, then you're going to stop?
The direct way I could answer it as immediate next steps is if MSR is not provided by council, we would not be able to bid into the RFP process, right? So right now, the only pathway to market is the ISO's RFP process. Prior to that, there was a process called the Unsolicited Proposals, USP, that was meant for large infrastructure projects of a certain nature. In 2023, that's where we're full steam ahead in pursuit of that. That program was closed by the government once we had completed our package. So a combination of high-level discussions that weren't too intense, but keeping the project alive and beating, and then speaking with the ISO, keeping our pulse on the industry when the next pathway to market would arise.
Okay, so, sorry, you done? Okay.
For that.
But again, well, I don't really follow about that. We're if we don't, we're here tonight because we stopped talking. Have you stopped talking to the landowners till you hear from us? Is that the deal?
No, we've been actively discussing with landowners.
Because it just kind of, well, we'll keep walking along here. Okay, councillors, we're any other comments here, and then see where we go. Go ahead.
Can I just make a statement?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not saying we should dismiss the energy storage as a need. But my biggest thing is we're not going to permit a housing development on private agricultural land. So what precedent do we set by granting a private commercial project an exemption? I am not prepared to support this project on prime agricultural land. Energy storage capacity is a real need, but it doesn't have to come at the cost of our farmland that the municipality is committed to protect, along with feedback from our residents on the importance of protecting our agricultural lands and our rural lifestyle.
Okay. For discussion purposes, let's looking for some direction.
Yeah, I'm not going to provide direction just as of yet. I mean, you guys did a great job, I got to admit. You answered all the questions. And I think you answered them to the satisfaction of most of council around the table. There's basically one area that is a struggle for me, Councillor Sangster kind of tipped on it a little bit there as well too. And that is the agricultural side. And I know we look at it and we look at the benefits, we looked at the dollars, we look at the economic benefit that may come from what we talked about between taxes and whatever the other portion that you may have. So I believe we have a responsibility around this table to rely on cold reasoning, objective data, and technical facts. And purely on paper, the compressed storage is a viable technology to help power the grid. I don't think anybody can argue that around this table from what we just saw. However, we don't live on spreadsheets. So our role around this table is look beyond the immediate merits of this proposal and consider the full economic, agricultural, and long-term food security implications of permanently removing 300 acres of productive farmland from agricultural production. We're very fortunate to live in Ontario's most productive agricultural region in Huron County using county-wide agricultural production averages. 300 acres represents approximately $790,000 in annual farm cash receipts. That's just 300 acres. The production doesn't stop at the farm gate. It supports seed, fertilizer suppliers, equipment dealers, fuel suppliers, trucking, grain handling, repairs, and other local services that are part of our broader rural economy. When we apply Ontario's agricultural economic multipliers, that $790,000 in farm production could represent approximately 1.3 million in broader annual economic activity and potentially closer to 1.5 million with the wider worker spending effect is considered. That's again on 300 acres. I recognize these are estimates based on countywide averages, but I have done my homework and not site-specific economic impact assessments. The actual number could be higher or lower on what is produced on these particular acres. But if we're going to consider the economic benefits of this project, then we should also consider the same discipline, the economic value of the agricultural production being permanently removed. The decision has also been set to the broader provincial context. Ontario is losing farmland at an estimated rate of 319 acres per day, based on 2021 Census of Agriculture. Between 2016 and 2021, Ontario's farmlands area declined from approximately 12.3 million acres to 11.77 million acres, a loss of approximately 582,000 acres. To me, that matters because agricultural land is not simply another land use commodity. Prime agricultural land is limited, a non-renewable resource, and once it's gone, it's gone. Future councils and future generations cannot simply recreate it. We should not be permanently reducing food product capacity without serious considerations. For me, the question is not whether Ontario has enough food today. The question is whether Ontario will retain enough productive agricultural capacity to respond to the needs of future generations. A secure food system is not only about producing enough food under normal circumstances, it's also about resilience when conditions are not normal. Our local agricultural land is part of a food producing base that helps Ontario respond to extreme weather events, drought and flooding, transportation disruptions, trade restrictions, supply chain interruptions, changing food prices, and population growth, just to name a few. The more agricultural capacity we retain locally, the better position we are to respond to these pressures over time. Prime agricultural soils, developed over thousands of years, once land permanently developed, the agricultural resource and the ability to farm the parcel are effectively lost. This is why current planning framework requires municipalities and to enhance geographically conditions, agricultural land base, and protect prime agricultural areas for long term. We also need to remember that Ontario's agricultural land represents relatively a small portion of the province's total land base, but it supports a major agri-food sector. The Ontario Farmland Trust reports Ontario's farmland represent approximately 5% of the province's land base, while the agri-food sector employs more than 871,000 people and contributes to more than $51 billion annually in Ontario's GDP. These numbers reinforce that the farmland protection is also an economic responsibility. In my view, protecting agricultural land is not simply an environmental issue, it's also a food security issue, an economic issue, a rural community issue, and a long-term planning issue. As members of council, we're required to make land use decisions within the provincial planning framework. That framework directs planning authorities to protect prime agricultural areas and maintain a continuous agricultural land base. The province also states that conversion of prime agricultural areas to settlement areas should be avoided wherever possible. I'm not suggesting that municipalities should not oppose growth. Growth is necessary. But where growth is necessary, the location and form of that growth matters. There is a place for energy storage, windmills, solar, or compressed air, etc., but it does not belong in the fields that feed us. That is why tonight I am stepping beyond the numbers that we've been shown today and looking at the future and voicing my clear opposition to placing this facility in our farmland.
Wait. Go ahead. Thank you, Councillor Whetstone. That's really well done. I agree with you 100%, and you as well, Councillor Sexter. We have a very active heritage group in Blue Water, and we don't talk about our farmland or rural area as heritage, but I see it as heritage. That's why I live here, and some people I've spoken with sitting out here see it as heritage looking out their window. And parts of this project will destroy, they've told me, their heritage for their property. So that would be one reason why I wouldn't support this. And having said this, a positive reason is to support not taking the farmland. And I would hope if we looked at this, we would continue to feel that way about other projects, like new projects, very hard when they want to take our best farmland, not just tonight. But I wouldn't support the project. I think it would do damage to our heritage, and keep that in mind when other productive farmland comes up for maybe use. We might want to think of that too.
Okay. Councillor Scott.
Thank you for your presentation tonight. I want to explain to you my reserve on the project itself, and it's not so much as the farmland, which is a portion of it. It's about I never heard a contingency plan for failure. You guys are thinking you're going to rock it, which is good for you. You have to. The reason I'm in reserve is because about 10 or 11 years ago, the municipality spent a lot of time, effort, and money on a ethanol plant that was coming to this area. It did not come. And if you think that there's no cost in the municipality right now it's costing the municipality. We're having a special meeting, staff are being paid, councilors are being paid to be here. Right now, it's costing the municipality money. From now to the time that you possibly will drill into the earth, there will be more of these. So you cannot say there's no cost in the municipality. And the taxpayers pay us to be here. But my reserve is the fact that what if it doesn't happen? What if you fail? What if you can't get it to hold air? That is my reserve, that the fact that the time, effort, and money spent in order to accomplish the fact that something that you really aren't too sure if it's going to work, that is my reserve. That's my reserve.
Okay. Any other comments this time, Councillor Hassel?
Thank you. All the credits for you. I know a little bit about your business, oddly enough. I've worked with Honey and the ISO before, so I'm very familiar with the business. What I will say is I just trying to wrap my head around the economics, because I've had to do budgeting and I just don't understand where this money is coming from. And I appreciate that maybe a private company wants to finance it and everything else, but I heard and I asked the question, who's the guarantor? And I honestly, you might interpret it as the ISO. I interpret it as the hydro users. That's the guarantor. There's the ones that use in the hydro. And if I look at the math that you've given me, and I've done rough math, for 69 cents a day for all my Blue Water residents to get back what probably is not 69 cents cheaper hydro, this does not make sense. So I look at the simplicity of it. I appreciate the philosophy. I really struggle with how you can call it a green project because it will not be green. I've done projects like this, and when you start doing the carbon emissions for the construction, it outweighs a good portion of it. And I understand why you went 40 years, because that only makes sense. That's probably the only way you're gonna make money out of this if you're gonna do it. So from my perspective, I can't support it, and just strictly on the 69 cents, it's not gonna come back.
Any other counselors at this time? Counselor Lamport?
Well, I think it's only right that everybody comments, because it's a pretty big subject. So, I appreciate everything's been done. I too am amazed at the actual technology that's involved there and understand it completely. Out of all the things that I looked at, I struggled a little bit with the noise. That's been satisfied. All technical issues I have no concerns with, but the one area that was still isn't answered, and I think Bill has said it very well, is the agricultural demise, if you want to say it that way. It's just not, it's not good for the community. And we're not in a, or it's my view, we're not in a position where the need is a demand that says we got to do this. That's where I struggle. I might be able to make a decision if someone came forward and said, this has to be done, like it has to be done, but we're not there. And I still get disappointed when I see wind turbines sitting idle, because we needed those, we needed them. Yet on a 36-degree day, the demand on air conditioners must be as high as anything, and they're stopped, they're sitting idle. So I struggle with that whole process where I'm not sure the demand is there. I'm not satisfied it's there, maybe a wrong opinion. But even if I take that all aside, I can't justify the removal of the agricultural land right now. So for that reason, I also will not be supporting any resolution.
Counselor Groot?
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I like this statement of the demise of agriculture. I think that's a great statement because it is a demise of agriculture, and I think we have to stay very firm on that. However, like I do go back, my mind goes back. I'm struggling a wee bit with that weakest link theory I had a bit earlier, and whether it's relevant or not, you know, down inside these wells, there is going to be thousands of square kilometers of surface area, and if somewhere in there there's a weak link, and this air going in and out and in and out, and whatever is going to happen, it contaminates somebody's drinking water, or it drains somebody's deep water well for whatever reason. We're affecting people's lives. And I think I go back to the comment that Councillor Lamport just said, that if we were in dire need, like for something to be done to save our Ontario infrastructure, and but we're not. We're just not there to take these kind of risks, and I just can't support it either.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in the same boat. Thank you, Councillor Westone. Said it the best. But being a farmer also, we can't afford to lose one more acre of land that being proposed here. I'm worried about the crossing of the municipal drains, the rivers, the creeks, that the pipeline would have to go underneath, the disturbance of this soil. I was told they're going to put everything back in place in 40 years. I won't be here. A lot of the audience won't be here, but I know that pipeline won't get taken out and put back in. We only have 6 to 8 inches of good soil to work with on our farms. We're not down in Indiana and mid-states where they got 2 feet. We got to utilize what we got and keep all the great land we have. Talked about the historical people that lived here, the families that grew up here and came here as immigrants, and they've generation after generation made this soil better, and they want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I thought earlier that maybe I was gonna have to lead, see where you thought I was going and then go from there. But anyway, as it was back in 2023, I had a lot of the concerns. First off, the idea, I'm not gonna quibble with that. You said you've got a plan. You've talked to that's not the issue. Everybody comes with a plan. It's about how it fits in. If there's an industry is coming, say, to Hensel or to one of our areas that has built up, well, there's still issues. But everybody understood that, everyone understands that's where it's gonna be. I also have a lot of faith in community. It says we're, a willing host. Well, and the government set this up, but this isn't I represent Blue Water. We all represent Blue Water, but at the end of the day, it's about the people in it. And so that's the bottom line. And and as always, and I have great faith in that, when there's an issue that really does get people together, whether it's for or against. And of course, we talked a lot about this indirectly, but it's about the social side. It's about the people that make up Blue Water, not the dollars and cents. And of course, the other night, we have a great process. We had a chance for people to come forward, and Joanne was that person that rose from this community. And the 5 points, I think she had 5 or 6. Every one of those is what I was rolling around with in 2023 about this, and had discussions with many of the affected people. And keep in mind that the people that were offered and were asked to look at this project, let's keep them in mind. They're our neighbors too. And I really have found it wonderful that as people have come forth with the passion on this issue, they've also had to understand we all have to live together. And I thank you for that as our community. So, but it comes down to 4 or 5 points for me. The landowner called in down by Dashwood and said, Paul, I got a phone call about bedrock. They want to look at putting compressed air down here. Isn't that the same idea they were talking about up at Varna? And I went, well, that's interesting. And then I said, you better phone Graham. He's been in charge of that group. So I put him to Graham. And then a representative we all know in our community, well respected and always an advocate. And I want to clear that, he's an advocate for looking ahead. And that's always keep that in our minds. We all live in this community. And he asked me to come over, and we're opposite sides of politics a lot, but we're in this community together. And of course, it's, he wanted to speak, and he spoke in 2023. And we're talking about, of course, Paul. And he I said, I brought it right away to him. Is this also looking down south at the south end of Blue Water and even into the old Stephen Township? And he was fair. He said, I'm not as close as I used to be, but yeah, there's talk of that. And kudos to the companies here. This time around, you sent stuff out, and but in there you did talk about ideas, and I appreciate the answer that I got. Tanya, you said, we're concentrating here. There's some other ideas, but the one at the end of the questions back, it did say, to date, we're not being pursued by Bedrock or Capstone. And this is the technical and the moment that we're in. But we still have to be at this moment and make a decision. And so there is maybe some other stuff that might come, and that's normal. But it really does make one think. And then when a majority of people have said and they've spoken, and we heard that here, but even as short as of when I was driving here, I checked again with the landowners that have been involved in this. And at this moment, it seems like the offers haven't been that great, and so I said, fine. I said, I told him where I believe I'm at and we've heard it more as eloquent from colleagues. But on the factual things, we talk about the ag assessment plan so far. And it says 2% if you're going into land that has not been already zoned. you're up front, you said this is 15 to 20, maybe 30. But as you read through how you massage things, and again, you're following the lines. This isn't your problem. This is our ag assessment problem. Because on page 30, correct me, maybe it's 31, it doesn't matter, but it got in there an argument this about why we should take land out of, that this should be allowed. It said, there's really small fields and farmers don't farm small fields anymore. This is 30 or 40 acre chunks if you want to look at it, if you look at how that's been broken out. And I went, boy, oh boy, I guess I'm not a real farmer, or my son isn't. We'll rent 15-acre plots. And I hope, and I want to say this for farmers, I hope we all remember that we need farmers and farmers need to make money. So I hope you all remember this, because when a farmer looks at this is trying to maybe help some income, but it even went further in there. It said, if these smaller farmers, they'd probably then have to have off-farm income. Well, I can tell you, I was working 1,000 acres and working off-farm, and my wife works pretty hard off-farm. And it isn't, of course, she loves it, but it was also to keep bread in between these ups and downs. So I think we need to fix our ag assessment thing. But that was not your problem, but it sure didn't help me to decide we're using the wrong formula. Back to some colleagues here and wondering how they could say we could throw 130 away. We need to fix that. But that's just, I hope people look at that further. And then the other little thing was 40 years, we're going to tear it down. And we've got the money already in it. Well, as we pointed out, the money's coming from from us. But at the same time, I have to look at the common sense of it as I drove up this road, and my roots do come up this road. And I'd be thinking, what would some of those people say? They built things to last. You don't build things just to tear them down. Maybe we got to start fixing that problem. But again, if I would say I'm a willing host for this, then I would have to say to people that I buy the argument that you tear something down and that it's going to go back to agricultural land. Holy Hannah. Sorry, I can't, that's a bridge too far for me. Now, I won't be here in 40 years. I hope you young guys are here in 40 years. But what's the difference if you say you can't tell me I told you so you could fix it? I have to deal with now, and now doesn't count. I just can't have common sense of it. So at the end of it too, I have came to the conclusion that I can't be a willing host, and that's where I'm at. And go ahead.
For a motion?
Prepared for a motion discussed earlier, but anyway, go ahead.
You have one? If you could read one for me? We chatted. Not to support.
That we're not being whatever words you.
That Council of the Municipality of Bluewater has reviewed the Bayfield Compressed Air Energy Storage Project proposed by Bedrock Energy and Capstone Infrastructure Corporation and considered its potential impacts on the communities surrounding properties, municipal infrastructure, environment, and local land uses, and that the Council of the Municipality of Bluewater has determined it does not support the project.
Oh, hey. We need to now, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? Sure, if you wish, sure. Yep.
Okay, it was moved by Councillor Lamport, seconded by Councillor Whetstone, the motion that I just read aloud. Councillor Harris.
Support.
Councillor Lamport.
Support.
Councillor Walden.
Support.
Deputy Mayor Becker.
Support.
Councillor Groot.
Support.
Councillor Whetstone.
Support.
Councillor Sangster.
Support.
Councillor Hessel.
Support.
And Mayor Klopp.
Support.
That carries.
Okay, council, I believe that is the that is our business for this evening, correct? There's nothing else on the agenda except to move to confirmatory bylaw 8126, August 13th, 2026, special council meeting. Council Hessel, Councillor Sangster, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I need a motion to adjourn if you want. Councillor Harris, Deputy Mayor, all those in favor? Any opposed? I thank the staff and for your hard work, and thank you for staying for the rest of the night with us.